Y'all are absolutely a true success story.
Dreams do come true.
Any of y'all, however you feel, but somebody in the same situation, abortion versus adoption. Mm-hmm. Hopefully this whole episode has been a testimony to the virtue to adoption.
I'm very happy that my biological mother is pro-life because I enjoy existing.
Well, I am pro-life, and that was my decision for myself. But I mean, I do believe that it's an individual's, choice to whether. So I have friends that have had abortions, and that was their circumstances, and that was fine. But for me personally, I wanted to have the child, even though I knew that I was going to give him up. Wanted to give him up.
I'm glad you did.
Mm-hmm. I am too.
Very glad.
He is too.
It worked out. It worked out, and I won the parental lottery.
4 great parents.
I have 4 great parents, 2 Christmases, 2 birthdays. It's a win-win.
1, 2, 3, go. Jennifer Hardy, har. Believe it or not, welcome to the Lawyer Dana Show, the Lawyer Dana podcast. Wow, we have a lot to talk about. And we're going to do it right after this.
Welcome to the Lawyer Dana podcast.
Welcome to the Lawyer Dana podcast. And today I have a very special guest. I am with Kyle Matus, and you're not going to believe this story today. You're just not going to believe this story. I've been in family law for 16 years, and this is about as unusual as it gets. Another thing, y'all may not know this, but choose to be as funny as you want. So I'm gonna be cracking jokes at you guys' expense for most of the.
That's okay.
We'll feel right
especially this guy.
We live with this one, sometimes.
Because if Kyle's coming after you,
yeah.
Unstoppable.
But yeah, he is unstoppable. So here's what the situation is. Actually, you're the best person to tell it.
Yes.
So tell.
You want me to start from the beginning?
So once upon a time, there was a boy named Kyle.
Essentially, I was given up for adoption in the mid-'70s, and I was kind of in limbo for about 3 weeks, adopted by some wonderful people, grew up in a very normal upper-middle-class family, and but always in the back of my mind, I was just so curious. And I've noticed, I've talked to a lot of kids that are adopted. Some are curious, some aren't. So I was just one of these very curious kids. And all I had for like a little over 40 years was this piece of paper. And it would just give me a little bit of information. It would say biological mother, a little bit of French, a little bit of Irish, a little bit of Scottish, height, weight, a little bit of personality, disposition, and some interest like cooking and arts and crafts and things. And then it would do the same thing for my biological father: height, weight, siblings, nationality, things like that. And that's all the information I had. And these pieces of paper were probably the most important thing in my life. And I would read it like once a year. It was just crazy. So This is all the information that I have. Apparently, Hope Cottage, they give you a little bio. They don't say
Your own little story.
my own little story. And it'll go into about their parents, personality traits, and a little bit of health. So I did have some health issues when I was younger, which is how this kind of whole thing started. Because I was diagnosed with a kidney disease. So my parents, by the way, when I say parents, I'm going to say my parents. And then when I say bio parents, it's going to be these guys.
Okay.
So my parents
spoiler alert.
Yeah. My parents kind of started the process of maybe finding these guys so that way we could just get a little bit of medical history and it would help with my doctors and things like that. But it was just insane because my sister's name is Kelly Matus. I'm Kyle Matus. And somehow our file at Hope Cottage got intertwined into one file. So apparently when you do things like this,
Is she your biological sister?
she is not my biological sister. totally different bloodline, but we had similar names. So I'm assuming it was some sort of clerical error. So our file got all mixed together. So what happened was we were looking to see if one of my biological parents sent in a letter saying, if my biological child ever wants to meet me, I'm okay with that. That's kind of your first step. So when we went into the file and my parents checked into it, the place told us that my sister's biological mother sent a letter in. It turns out it was actually my biological mother, but because our files got intertwined somehow, we weren't realized. So my parents assumed. So as far as I knew, I went through my entire childhood assuming there was no letter and nothing, but just curiosity just kept getting me. So what happens in these things, especially back in the day, it was such a long, arduous process to find them. You would start the process and then, life would happen. You put it on the back burner. 5 years later, you'd pick it up again and start the process. Yeah. Life would happen. You put it on the back burner. And then just when
people do that with their estate plans all the time, too. It's like the worst problem. Do you guys have wills? I'll hawk some wills today, too. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I think I started the process again when I was in Chicago. And I came back, and here's where it just gets crazy. I met up with a friend of mine that I grew up with, and he was telling me this story about he got a call in his office about some guy who was saying that he was his half brother. And of course, my friend blew it off, didn't return the call.
Through a DNA test.
Through something. I guess he kind of did the same process I did. Oh. So my buddy receives a call. This guy's telling him, I'm your half brother. My friend blows him off. Guy keeps calling. My friend finally takes the call. Turns out my friend's father gave up a child for adoption long before Brett was alive. That person was adopted through Hope Cottage Adoption Agency. So Brett tells me, he was adopted through Hope Cottage. And I said, excuse me? And he goes, yeah, Hope Cottage.
My Hope Cottage?
That's my Hope Cottage. And I'm over his house, we're drinking wine, and I'm going, you're telling me this guy was adopted through Hope Cottage and he found you? And he goes, yes. I said, get him on the phone right now, and I'd like to find out how he did that.
Did you get him on the phone?
We got him on the phone right then and there. This whole time, I was curious for over 40 years. Do you know what the process is? Apparently, and I don't know anything about law. I think it's a county clerk. You go to a county clerk, you get a form, you pay that county clerk $10, $12. You take that form into a courtroom, the judge signs it, you give it back to the clerk, and they send you your original file. This is $12 in 10 minutes. For 40 years, I've wondered this, and I don't know if laws have changed or what. But I mean, we're talking from when he told me how to do this to 3 weeks later, I had their names.
Wow.
But there's so much. All right, so it just gets crazy. So I was born in 1976. When you get adopted, I guess the state has a file and Hope Cottage has a file.
Makes sense.
Over time, the state will send your file to Austin. I guess it goes in some sort of building. Then there was a fire.
Oh.
So did your file burn?
My file burned.
Wow.
A lot.
You don't even live in Louisiana. I mean, they get flooded out and there's no records, right?
My file burned.
Wow.
So now I get the judge to sign it. I find out my file burned. So now I'm devastated. I'm like, this is never going to happen. And then that nice lady.
So was it the Hope Cottage file that you had access to or the state's file that you got through the court?
Through the court, I was going to get a state's file. I assume I was going to get an original birth certificate with their names. Then it would be up to me to do the investigation part of it. Now, you can go the other way. You can go through Hope Cottage, but then you have to do a couple hours of like therapy, which was fine.
Did you do that?
I did. Oh. It's because my file was burnt. I was choosing to go the legal way to try to avoid the 2 hours of therapy.
Well, as people do.
I was afraid they would
Do you
lock me
think-
up and throw away the
So my curious question is, did the therapy that you took like prepare you or help you in any way?
Yes.
Do you think it was a good thing?
It was a good thing.
Cool.
And I can tell you how and why.
Absolutely.
So
Because a lot of people just want to get that state file. And
yeah,
just let me see it.
To be honest with you, so this situation is so unique, and I need people to know that the odds of this happening to you are slim to none. But I did ask the therapist. I said, what are the odds that these people are going to be normal and they want to meet me? And she told me 50%.
Well,
And that's you don't know what you're going to find, but I know. You know when you know something in the depths of your soul? I knew that these people were decent people. I just knew it. I knew it. And I just knew
Wait,
that
are you-
these were
these
decent
two?
people. These two right here.
These two.
Yes, these two. I knew they were decent people.
the audience at this point has probably, Terry, you're watching this. You had no idea, right, about this show, right? You're watching this for the first time going, who the hell are they? Good, perfect.
So sometimes you just know, and I knew in heart of hearts that I was going to find decent people. But when she told me 50%, that was tough. And there's a box of Kleenex on the table.
That's actually better odds than I would have guessed it.
Really?
Yeah.
You know, I've only done this once.
I
so
would have thought
don't know.
25% would have been pretty impressive.
Yeah.
True.
You know?
So I do my hour of therapy. They go down to the basement. They call me the next day. They said, we got your file. That's when they found out that my sisters and my file were intertwined.
So was your sister adopted from a different?
Adopted from Hope Cottage.
Oh, adopted from Hope Cottage, but
6 years prior.
different. Okay, so different biological parents.
Different,
entirely.
totally different bloodline. She has her own story.
So the Matuses were into adoptive kids.
Yes. Well, I believe that my father couldn't have children. That's why they were 40. My parents are 40 years older than me.
Oh.
So they got married in 1957. I assume that they just, what happened, you know, if they got pregnant, they got pregnant. Well, probably 10 years after they were married, they're like, oh, we're not getting pregnant. What's going on? Get checked, find that out. Probably shortly after, go ahead and start the adoption process. I think they chose to adopt a girl first, thinking maybe a girl would be easier.
Okay.
So
I guess you do get a choice.
you do. You get a choice. So now I've got a judge to get my file. I do my hour or two of therapy. She checks me off as sane, and they call me 24 hours later. Now, you don't understand. So for 40 years, I've looked at this piece of paper that says height, weight, personality traits, education. You know, not to throw you under the bus, but it said father, you know, biological father dropped out of high school in 9th grade, some college over there. I've had like serious learning disabilities my whole life, and I'm like, what's going on? What am I going to find? He later went and finished high school, and they're both actually did pretty well in life and are pretty comfortable. But you just don't. All I have is the information that I was given. I didn't know. So I go in there, and they give me a name, and when I read these names, it says Donald Kinder and Donna Kinder, and I was like, why do my biological parents have the same last name? And I was like,
Oh, yeah.
and I go, were they married when they gave me up for adoption? And yes, they were.
I have questions.
Questions?
I'm gonna wait. Keep going.
Okay.
Sorry to the audience. I'm gonna keep you in suspense. Sorry, but just keep going. We'll get
Okay.
there. We'll get there. I told you. This is a fascinating one.
So then I'm going, they were married when they gave me up for adoption. Okay, there has to be a reason. So here's your reason. my biological mother, who was 19 years old, you have to keep in mind, 19, she's a child. 19 years old is a child.
It's a child.
That is a child.
That's a child.
Okay, he was 20.
I think 25, you're kind of almost kind of sort of thinking about perhaps, oh, I am noticing that maybe I am coming out of childhood.
Yeah. This is
About 30 is where you become a person.
Yeah. This is a child. So she got pregnant. I'm assuming she just didn't want to tell anybody. They actually got married, and then the night of their wedding, she decides to tell him that she is pregnant. And let's call it 8 to 10 weeks later, I was born.
We'll explain later.
I have so many questions. How did you hide that? But we'll wait.
So that, and they were just young. They were poor. Again, 19 years old. I mean, this isn't necessarily a political show, but
it was actually probably a responsible thing to do. In the mid 70s, people were still fairly responsible. People.
Yeah. So that they came up with that decision. I'm glad they did it. The point is that this is how it was supposed to happen in a way, So I'm given up for adoption. I'm in a holding period for about 6 weeks. And that's where I would really like to know a little bit more information. My parents, upper middle class people, married for 20 years. They were on the list. Why did it take 6 weeks? You would think that, and maybe that's a question for y'all, when you decided to give me up for adoption before I was born. I'm very surprised that I wasn't born, hospital 3 days, Hope Cottage 2 days, sign the paperwork, back to my parents at day 5, 6. It wasn't. It was like 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. So yeah, man, I don't even know where I'm at now. So I get names. They both have the same name. Of course, my entire life, I'm like, do I have siblings? Do I have siblings? I figured I didn't have full siblings. I figured I have half siblings. So now I have names. So now I'm by my car, bawling, crying, freaking out. I can't even wait to get home before I'm on Facebook searching Donald Kinder in these names. And oh my gosh, that was heavy. So, when you find these things on Facebook, you don't know. If you notice, I don't really look like him that much. First picture I saw of this woman, that's my mom. That is my biological mother. There is no question. So I get names.
I think you look like both of them.
Really? So, I think I kind of have his eyes, but there's just absolutely no denying that I am her biological father. We haven't even been tested or anything. I just assume that this is all right.
Looks a lot like all the men in
I don't think we have to be tested at this point. But so now I go home. I try to stop crying and drive home. Now I'm on my phone now the guy who has a half brother. He's very involved in this. He's the one that put me in touch with his half brother in order to get to the county clerk. So now we're all excited. We're like, okay, it's time to search Facebook and find Don. I think I started with Donald. Yeah. So I pull up his thing. His thing is private. I can't pull it, and he doesn't have a profile picture. So then I'm like, how did I find it? I found one of your sisters somehow. Mm-hmm. Then I was like, okay, well, I just got to go to Christmas. Start scrolling to Christmas, because we're gonna see photos, and we're gonna find a man that looks exactly like me. Finally, there's people out there. My sister's 6 foot tall, has blonde hair. I look nothing like my parents. I'm gonna find people that look like me, right? No one looks like me. So I start going through his Christmas pictures, and I find a guy who kind of resembles me. Kind of looks a little nerdy. He had a belly like me. He had a long beard. He has a Star Wars shirt on.
Oh, that's a good sign.
My friend is going, "That's your dad. That's your dad." You know, well, just because he has a belly, he's, doesn't mean he's my dad. So for about 24 hours, I thought this random guy with a beard and a Star Wars shirt was my father. There was a picture of him, but he had longer hair, and he looked real tall in the picture. Now, keep in mind, I know that my biological father is about 5'11", because it said it on the piece of paper that I stared at for 40 years.
You have everything on that piece of paper
I have
perfectly memorized. Don't you?
Memorized.
Are there some random numbers just on it somewhere? Is it serialized? Do you know that number?
Well, is a random number serialized?
Well, I guess it wouldn't be random, but is there like a serial number to the document, like document number or whatever?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. Yeah, yes, absolutely.
You got it memorized?
No, I don't.
Oh,
no,
okay.
I don't have that.
All
I don't
the
have that
important
memorized.
stuff, then.
But I was always trying to figure
There's
out
a
why
line.
am I short? So I have it said biological father. I think it said about 5'11". I was like, well, that's not short. His brother was probably, I think it said 5'6". So I was like,
How tall are you?
I'm I say 5'9". I'm probably more like 5'8" nowadays. Mm-hmm. So I'm not short, but I'm relatively short. And so, you stare at these things and you try to get, she said food is a huge part of my life, both at work and at home.
When you worked in restaurants when I knew you.
That's right. Yeah.
Do you still?
I still
You
work.
still do, right?
I still work at restaurants.
Where do you work?
I'm at Bob's Steak and Chop House in Grapevine.
Nice.
Yeah. So.
Quick plug for Bob.
Yes, please come and see me.
Go see Kyle.
Request Kyle Matus, Bob's Steak and Chop House, Grapevine.
Yeah.
So yeah. So now I start going through these Christmas pictures, and I see him, but he looked. I guess it was the angle, the shot. The man looked 6'3", and I knew he was 5'10", 5'11".
Well, your dad always looks bigger to you.
Yeah, but you know how the angle, a perspective situation.
yeah.
Plus, he had long hair. Plus, I don't think, other than our eyes, I don't think he really looks like me very much. So when I looked at that guy and I looked at the nerdy, chubby guy, I'm thinking nerdy, chubby guy.
Are you really his dad?
Yes, I am.
He claims me.
Hold on. Is he really his dad?
Yes. Absolutely.
So for about 24 hours, I'm thinking that the nerdy, chubby guy with the Star Wars shirt is my father. It's not, because eventually I found a picture where he was tagged.
Oh.
So now I'm like, that's him right there. Mm-hmm. So now I got biological father locked down. Now it's time to Google this name.
So you spent all that time and you just were into him. You weren't like, well, let me check mom real quick to see.
Well, everything I just said might have happened in 7 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
couldn't see because I was crying, so I had to drive home, and then I had to just focus.
Wow.
And then I had to focus. And all right, so I have confirmed who my biological father is. Now, I think on the original birth certificate, it said you had the same last name, but it also said your maiden name.
Pettit.
Yes. So now it's time to find the Pettit. So I pull it up. Her account is not private. It's just food and cooking, and I'm like, oh my God. And it's in the first picture that comes up, and I just look at it, and I'm just like, oh. I mean, in a second, you can look at her immediately and tell that she's related to me. Crazy. And so I was just like, that's it. And you picture, when you're a kid, I pictured her 1,000 times, and it almost fit the face. You know what I mean? It's so crazy.
Wow.
So anyway, so there we go. I know who they are. I've confirmed them. I know what they look like.
But wait, there's more.
Now, let's find out if they're normal. Let's find out if
Relatively
they're
speaking.
murderers, if they're drug addicts. So my dad has that little pay $5 a month and you can look somebody up.
Yeah.
We look them up, find nothing horrible. So all right, we've got normal folks here. So okay, so now I'm like, okay. And also, now that we looked them up, I now have addresses where they live. I have phone numbers. I have, criminal history. I have all the information I need. So now I'm like, well, what do I do? All my friends are telling me, you call them up. Just call them up. And I can't call all these people up. They answer the phone. Hey, guess who? You can't do that. And I knew, and I'm so glad I didn't do that because she would have absolutely hung up the phone immediately. She would have hung up.
We'll explain later.
So I'm like, okay, let's think about the appropriate thing to do. Let's take this from a psychological, healthy standpoint, and let's see what to do. So then I'm like, I'm just going to send them both a letter. More crying.
Were there little droplets all over the page? Were they little slightly crinkled? A couple of spots?
I'm a math guy. I can't write a paper. I'm not good at this. I'm just like pouring my heart out on this letter. I don't even really think that I proofread it. I think I stuffed it in an envelope and I just mailed it. And now I have to go to work and do like normal life things.
This is that same day that you found out?
Same day.
Okay, so yeah, you did all this in like immediately.
45 minutes.
Wow.
I mean, I had everything.
So you sent the letter.
I've got people. I've got my buddy Brett on the phone. As soon as we have names, my dad's on the computer doing criminal history check.
Have you thought about detective work, Kyle?
I can. If anybody out there needs help, I know the steps, and it only costs like $12. You know, I was literally going to hire a private investigator. I've gone through every phase and plan of this thing. So now I have names. Now I have all the information I need. I write letters. I send them out. You know, it's snail mail. It's going to take a couple days to get there. I know she lives in Houston. I know he lives in Arlington. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wait, he lives in Arlington? Let's get in the car. Let's get in the car.
Because you're going to Grapevine to work anyway. That's pretty close to Arlington.
I was working in Dallas at this point.
Were you?
But I'm living on the M streets in Dallas. I'm in close to downtown Dallas. I'm like, he lives in Arlington.
Straight up 30.
Let's get in the car. Let's go to Arlington. Now, this is a little creepy. Not necessarily proud of this. There's some thing. So I get in the car. I drive to Arlington, and I drive past his house. And then I'm like, there's a car in the driveway, and I get his license plate.
Of course.
Yeah, and I'm like, let's find out if that's him. And then I'm just, and then I don't want to sit.
And then you put a little tracker on it.
I don't want to sit.
Hacked his bank account.
I don't want to sit outside his house like a creepo. So I pull down the street and sit.
Like a
like a creepo. Then all of a sudden that car drives away because I'd circled back around and the car's not there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where did he go? Turns out that was just a friend of his car visiting him. It wasn't even his car, was in the garage with the garage shut. So then I didn't have the guts to knock on the door, and I didn't want to handle it that way anyway. I just wanted him to get his letter and then just kind of pray that they had a desire to meet me. At this point, you got to understand, I have no idea. They might go, I gave it for adoption for a reason. Don't call me. Have a good life. Which would have devastated me. It absolutely would have devastated me. Luckily, that's not the case.
Why would it have devastated you?
Because I was so curious, and I was betting so hard. I'm a big, like, kind of trust my gut type guy, and in my gut, it was telling me I'm a somewhat decent person, and I'm like, did I get that from my parents, or was that biologically given to me? This whole nature versus nurture, huge aspect of this whole thing. And that's what really interests me. Psychology's always really interested me, but this whole nature versus nurture thing is absolutely fascinating. And by the way, nature is way more than you think, just so you know.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So in my heart of hearts, I'm thinking these are nice people. They're going to want to at least meet me. And if that wasn't the case, I would have been devastated because I would have just been heartbroken. I would have also second guessed my gut feeling on everything I've ever chosen in my entire life.
I never will choose forever again.
Correct. So
it is only a fundamental issue for you.
So they get letters. And I don't know if you want Donna to tell this part about what happens when they receive a letter.
That might be a good time.
Okay.
I was coming home from work with my sister. I have a younger sister, Brenda. And I was checking my mailbox when we were walking up to the front door. And I noticed that it had a letter, and I could tell it was a man's handwriting. And the only man that I knew, in Dallas that I thought I might be was my brother Bobby, who I was living in his house at the time. And I'm thinking, why is he writing me a letter? What have I done? What's going on? Anyway, so I couldn't imagine why he was writing me a letter, so I just ripped the letter open. And by this time, I'm on the front porch, and Brenda's getting out of the car, and I start reading the letter, and the first line says, I'm writing you because, I believe you to be, my biological mother. And you think he cried. The street flooded. I could not get past the first line. I was just shaking so bad, and so I didn't even know what to think. And I have to say, honestly, it was the hardest thing I ever had to do to give Kyle up, both of us, for adoption. But I didn't really think that I would ever see him or meet him. I always knew in my heart if I didn't meet him here on earth, I knew I would meet him in heaven. Yep. And that was good. I just wanted him to have a good life. That's all we ever wanted for him, to have a good life. And so I just couldn't believe this. And so I handed the letter to my sister, and she starts, reading it. She read it to me. And then I had never told anybody in my family about.
So she didn't know?
I told my two sisters were the only one. My parents had no idea.
Did you tell them at the time or later in life?
I told them
when?
Later, a few years later in life. I told both my sisters. But my mother, whom I was close to all my life, I didn't tell her. I was raised in a very conservative family, and I was scared. I was very young and very scared, didn't know what to do. That's why I didn't tell anybody. I knew that I didn't want to have an abortion. I knew I wanted to have the child, and Don and I had been dating, and we were planning on getting married anyway. But we were just starting our life, and I just thought, we just weren't ready to be parents. And I wanted him to have a good life, better than I thought we could provide at the time. Mm-hmm. And so I was just adamant about it from the beginning that I wanted to give him up. And luckily Don, felt very similar too. Anyway, so I didn't know what to do, so I thought about it all night. And then the next day I thought, well, if I got a letter, maybe Don got a letter. So somehow I didn't have, Don and I, we dated briefly.
Did you start Kyling your way to Don?
Yeah. We started briefly dating in the 80s, and then we broke up again. And then I thought, well, I don't really have Don's number or anything, so I just went on Facebook, and I'm not a tech person at all and don't know how to do any of that. I didn't even set up my Facebook account. My best friend did. So anyway, somehow I think I texted him or I put him on Facebook, said to call him. I said, did you get a letter from a man named Kyle? Call me. And sure enough, the phone rang. And that was the first time we had talked since
How long
the
did
80s.
it take for that phone call?
It was pretty fast. Yeah, it was real fast. And so then he said, yes, I got a letter from him. And yes, I've met him. I said, met him? Well, and he wants to meet you. I said, meet me. Nobody in my family knows. My sister said he exists. He can't meet me. I just couldn't hardly talk. I just couldn't process it. That I was finally going to get to meet him, just like Kyle. I had, wondered, what he was doing and hoped that he was well, and did he look like me, and all the things on my side. But I was so nervous. I just couldn't talk to him because I'm very emotional anyway. And to be able to talk to him for the first time, I knew that he wouldn't be able to understand a word I said because I'd be crying so much. So I just told, we started talking right away, Don and I. Mm-hmm. And I just said, I'm just going to have to wait a while, And so I don't know if it was me or Kyle, one of us decided to start texting.
Yeah, I started, and this is understandable too. This is extremely heavy. You think? And I wanted to handle it in a sensitive, caring, intelligent way, which is why I chose letters instead of just, hey, guess who? But she, it just took a little while for her to adjust. Now, him and I, he got his letter. I messaged his sisters saying, did Dawn receive a letter? They go, yes. And then I guess it didn't take us long. And keep in mind, he's in Arlington. He's 30 minutes away. So
first.
We talked over the phone. He answered the phone. I'm like, oh man, he's country. He answers the phone. We immediately, and I go, you want me to come over? And he goes, yes. So 30 minutes later, I'm at his house, and from there, and I handled myself pretty well because I thought I would. Oh yeah. Because I don't remember like crying or freaking out or anything like that. It was weird. It caught me off guard.
Very surreal.
Because he was a single older man. He had his suspenders on. He had he looked kind of like an old man. And I was like, why? How is this old man 21 years older than me? What's going on here? This old man answered the door. I said, I'm almost thinking, is your son Don here? So we go in and we have some tea, and we talked for a while, and it was really, really nice. And I think, we were both, fairly emotionally sound at the time. Mm-hmm. And so we knocked that out, and we did find out that we had some common interest in things like that. With Donna, it was a little bit of a slower step. I think we first started texting, and then I have a picture of me on day one at my parents' house, and I'm maybe, I guess, probably 6 to 8 weeks old, and I just send Donna that picture. And as soon as I sent her that picture, she was like, okay, I have the guts to call this guy.
It was like late at night.
And she called me, and we talked. She was actually you were going to Europe or something.
Yeah, I was going on a cruise with my older
sister. And then she was going to leave in like maybe 10 days to go to Europe for like 3 weeks. And I said, I'm not waiting 3 weeks. I've waited over 40 years to meet you. I'm not waiting another 3 weeks.
I'm like, nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Yeah, no one knows.
I've got to tell the family.
Her mom is still living. And
that was my question from earlier. Yeah,
she's actually passed now. But at the time,
how long ago was this?
This was 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
Yeah, maybe a little bit more than 3 years. 3.5.
August of 2019.
2019.
August 27th, I think, is the day that I met. So yeah, this is 3 years ago.
Do you celebrate that as like a new birthday type of thing?
I don't. And you know what's the greatest thing about that? Remember that piece of paper that was the most important thing in the world to me?
Yeah.
I haven't looked at it once because now I don't need a piece of paper. The piece of paper means nothing to me now because now I can just call my biological father or mother whenever I want. So crazy. That piece of paper went from my most cherished item in the world to now I'll just give him a call.
What's better than a piece of paper?
You know what I mean? So,
but wait, there's still more. There's the best part of the story hasn't even happened yet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's crazy.
So, but I want to hear from Don first.
Okay.
So, when you got the letter, like, what happened?
It changed my life completely. I mean, I was just sitting at home doing nothing, staring at the walls, had no desire to do anything. I had lost my brother the year before, and we were pretty close, but we were both confirmed bachelors. I never remarried after Donna and I divorced. And anyway, after he passed away from heart, disease and everything, I just more or less just gave it up. I inherited all of his money, which was, about $500,000. And I didn't even care to do anything. I just sat there on the couch and stared at the walls. That's all I did, and I was just waiting to die. But when I got that letter, everything changed, because I'd always wondered how he was doing, what he looked like, how was he raised, was his parents good to him and all that. And so I was just like Kyle. I had a lot of questions too. And anyway, I was stunned when I got that letter and read it. I immediately called, my friends and my family and told them, because I had told them all about Kyle years, decades before, And I told them he's contacted me, and I'm going to get to meet him and everything. And they were all very happy and thrilled and everything. And but anyway, I didn't really know it at the time, but that letter completely changed my life, turned a complete 180. And, I've loved it ever since.
Nice.
I got to meet him and everything, and that was great, all that.
Where did y'all meet?
I went to his house. Yeah. And it was just
again.
It was a.
You actually went in?
Yeah, I went in this time.
Yeah.
And I met kind of a very sad old man that was literally, not in a good place. And it's a very different person now. Very different person.
So tell us about that. How did that happen?
When you say that, how did that meeting go?
Well, hold on. Maybe I'm trying to rush too much, but I was because I know what's coming next.
Okay.
But yeah, how was that meeting?
It was a little bit of shock when he answered the door, because again, I just wasn't expecting that. My whole life I'm curious about, like what did I get from my parents and what did I get from them? And then I'm meeting this, at the time, he looks very different now. I met a very broken man, I wasn't kidding. He was sitting around waiting to die. It was a very.
Were you a different weight? How was he physically different? How was
no
he different?
Physically the same? Just a sad
guy.
He never remarried. He never had any more children.
You just gave up.
He loved his brother
Literally.
dearly. He lived with his brother for
I was
years.
taking care of my brother. He was ill for several years, and and that's how you get close. You're taking care of him, and. Anyway, when he died, it was like I didn't have any purpose in life anymore until Kyle came.
So, yeah, I met a broken man.
Yeah.
So, and that was odd to me. And I was like, you got to keep him. This guy's only 21 years older than me. Yeah. And he's, he could barely walk. He's in bad shape, but he wouldn't get any sort of knee surgery because he just probably assumed he was going to be gone in a couple of years anyway. Very, very broken, emotionally broken man, physically broken man. That is what I found. Found a nice man, but all those things. And I'm like, so that was a little bit tough. But we had common interests. He loves to cook too. Make a brisket that'll change your life. It's so amazing. So food is such a huge important part of my life at work and at home. Both of them love cooking, love food. It's very interesting. There's so many common things, but so I found him. And then they started talking because they were obviously very curious. And they were married. So they got married about 8 weeks before I was born. And then apparently y'all got divorced about when I was 5.
Yeah. 3 years.
Donna ended up getting remarried to another gentleman for about 18 years and then eventually got divorced. Neither of them ever had any more children. So
I never had any more children.
I have no half siblings.
You're an only child.
I'm an only child. But when I was doing the research on Facebook, there was a woman that referred to her as Mom. So for about a week, I thought I had a half sister. It's just, I guess it's your good friend's daughter
Right,
that
it's
just
my best
called-
friend's daughter. She
best
always
friend
called
daughter.
me Mom
She's always
too.
so.
It's called fictive kin.
Yeah, this. So I thought I had a half sister for a while. I also thought I had a nerdy father with Star Wars shirt too, but that's not the case. So yeah, they never had any more children. Then they started talking to each other, and I'm sure this is an emotional craziness, and they did.
Are you ready for it, Terry?
They
Have you figured it out? Are you waiting for it?
they did love each other a lot when they were married. He wasn't behaving well and maybe drinking a little too much, and that wasn't going to work out. So then, and at this point, he hasn't drank in years. So they started talking, and I think you went to go visit her.
Yeah, she
Maybe.
wanted to get together with me.
Yeah.
I wanted to meet
She
John
took
before I
she took
actually
him.
met Kyle.
She took
Before
him.
meeting Kyle.
Yeah,
See him.
she took him
Makes
shopping. Got the old man clothes off of him. Got some more age appropriate clothes. Got rid of the suspenders. Got 2 new knees, 1 new hip.
Wow.
Yeah, I had to be rebuilt.
He's more machine now than man.
And they started dating again because of these 2 letters that I sent them. And then, we start meeting, and I go to Houston, and they started dating. And about a year ago, I walked my biological mother down the aisle to marry my biological father again.
It was fabulous.
It was.
It does not get any better than that. It does not get any better than
Totally
that.
unexpected.
And his
Crazy.
adoptive parents were there also.
Yes.
They were
Yes.
guests at our wedding.
Well,
Yeah.
big family.
The
They
family.
were very, very nice
They're such
people.
wonderful people.
And Donna, she, a little before the wedding started, is a little informal. She got up and told the story.
At the wedding.
Yeah.
It was just, that was one of the hardest things we really did do was when his parents wanted to meet us, and I was just so scared. I don't know why.
That was an interesting day.
I knew they were wonderful
That's a whole
people.
nother level of
Stress.
ex-wife and ex-husband
Yes.
meeting their new, spouse or something.
Yeah.
It's not, the step parent or whatever. It's a whole different level.
I
of-
just kept saying to my mother and to anybody that would listen to me, I would say, what do I have in common with these people? They're just so fabulous, and I'm just a regular old person.
They're
And,
very nice
and everybody
people,
kept saying,
down to earth,
Donna,
too.
Donna, you have Kyle in common. I said, oh yeah, I forgot that. And so it was important to Kyle, so I was going to make the attempt, but I was very, very
She was
nervous.
very,
and
very
I got out of the car
nervous.
just bawling.
Bawling.
Kyle's like, maybe this wasn't a good idea.
I prepared this grand lunch, and my biological parents are meeting my parents. They're all gonna sit
Did you have
down.
Bob's?
No, I made the lunch at my
you did?
parents'
Great.
house.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Wow.
we're at a dining room table, and this is like some magical, weird Disneyland moment in my soul. And and she gets out of the car. She's like, I can't do it. I cried. My mom's hugging her, tried to give her wine
Yeah,
to
that
calm her down a little bit. My parents handled that pretty well. They weren't like
course they
super
did.
emotional, and that's something I
Well,
do
it's
have
not-
to.
It's not like they could take you away at this point.
Yeah,
We're losing the baby.
but I have to say that actually, now that I think about that, I don't remember being told I was adopted. So I really appreciate how my parents handled that, because I don't remember the conversation. It must have been, I'm sure they, gave, when you're 2 and they read books to you, I'm sure there were some books on that. It was just, it's always something I've known. So I think they handled that really well. And when they met him for the first time, my dad's all buddy with Don in the garage looking at this Harley. My mom's trying to force feed her wine to calm down.
They were such wonderful people.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even think about us getting married without them being there. And they came. I was so excited.
So was that the first time you met him? Was that your own wedding?
No, I met him.
Or you had
once
met him-
for
Yeah,
dinner,
for this
yes.
lunch.
Oh,
that
for
I
the
did.
lunch.
Yeah,
Yes.
for the lunch.
Wow.
There's
So
many.
How was the lunch?
It was
It was
delicious.
great.
He
Wonderful
cooked
cook.
it. It was,
Yeah.
What'd
it
you
was
have? What'd you make?
fabulous.
What did I make?
It was that pork.
It was a pork tenderloin,
Yeah,
pork
tenderloin.
probably some
Nice.
Yes.
starch. Yeah,
Cooked perfect.
Nothing. I don't cook
We
anything
all love to
fancy,
cook,
but,
so
yeah.
that was the thing. When Kyle and I first started finally talking, when I got the baby picture, like he said, I had to call him then, and no matter how nervous I was. But it was easy. I was surprised how
Yeah.
easy it once I got over the shock, how easy it was, because we do have so much in common, and
our sense of humor
Yes.
is very, very similar.
but when
yeah.
he
Did you tell
sent
him the Tyrone joke?
No, I haven't told him the Tyrone.
But then he sent a picture of how he looked currently. And when that came across my phone, I was like, just like he said, I'm his mother. I'm like, I couldn't believe it. I immediately called Don and said, Don, he looks just like us. I just can't believe it. And Don's like, he came from us. That's why he looks like us. I'm like, oh yeah. I didn't hold him as a baby. When I was in the hospital when he gave birth, I just couldn't do that. I thought, I've got to, I'm giving him this new life, and I just can't hold him, because I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think if I held him, I wouldn't be able to give him up. And I knew that's what I, in my heart and my gut, knew I needed to do. And so, but Don did, so it was just unbelievable that he was just there in my life. And it's just, as Don said, it's just been the most wonderful thing to think, especially since I always thought when I was younger, all I ever wanted was children. I went to college for a year or so, but I really wanted to be a mother and have children. So it was very hard.
So that basically you lived most of your life thinking you weren't gonna have kids ever.
When I got married the second time, I thought, well, maybe I'll have children. I just never had children. So then I had to live with the guilt.
Was there a reason?
No, not really. It just never happened. It wasn't a physical thing. We never really checked either one of us out. We just never had children. But I just couldn't believe that, finally, that I got to meet him, especially, since I thought I would never, meet him. And then I always thought I would maybe have children, but never did. So then I had this, what I was going to say, I had the guilt of, I gave away the only child that I would ever have. Mm-hmm. And so that was hard. That was the hardest day of my life, I think.
So do you feel like you've got him back now?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And he's, as long as I'm living, he'll always be in my life now. Mm-hmm. And then luckily,
beautiful.
He talks
2
about
Christmases.
Yeah. He has 2 birthday
Have you gotten him the
parties.
40 years worth of presents that you ripped him off for?
Yes, they have.
We're trying. We're trying.
He's got $500,000.
No, he forgot to finish that story.
I gave him a motorcycle.
Oh, wow. Did you?
He gave me a motorcycle.
All right, check. You're done.
Yeah. I have a nice collection of Colt revolvers.
Oh, nice.
That man.
Really?
Yeah.
No,
You
we
want to go shooting?
we do like
I would love to go
If you
shooting.
watch the podcast, I competitively skeet shoot. I'll take you out to the Dallas Gun Club.
I would
too.
love to do that.
Absolutely.
I have a pretty amazing collection of guns at this point.
Nice.
Thanks to him, partly.
Nice.
They belong to my brother. He loved shooting guns and collecting them. And,
Does he have a
I
Krieghoff
inherited them, and
left-handed?
so I gave him some of my brother's favorite guns.
Nice.
And the rest they got sold.
But I can't remember where we were.
Oh, I was asking your dad if he had a Krieghoff left-handed 40 or 32-inch barrel.
No, my brother was right-handed.
I'm not to take away from. No one cares about me in this podcast at this point.
but I'm competitively skeet shooting right-handed, and
that's
I want to try and learn left-handed because I'm crazy that way,
okay.
and I want to get the same gun that I got
Yeah.
left-handed. I just can't afford it.
He did have a lot of rare collectible guns that are no longer made. Like
I inherited a 1976 Diamondback.
Oh wow!
Yeah, Colt Diamondback.
Yeah.
It was my birth year.
Wow.
And then I also inherited a 1979 Colt Python.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, we need to go shooting. Kyle.
Yeah, we do.
So, how did you tell your mom?
Okay. Well, that's another story.
We got to ice this cake.
Yes, that's another story. As I said, both of my sisters, I'm the middle sister, knew. So
And they never told her?
Well, we're coming to that.
Okay.
So at the time, I was working at an assisted living. I was the activities director at assisted living, and we were having a tea. And so both of my sisters happened to be there, and they were in my office. And I said, well, I've talked to Kyle now. Mother was getting older, and I really would like Mother to meet Kyle. He's her first grandchild. I said, I really want him, but I'm scared. She's not in the best of health. I don't know, as emotional as I am, I don't know if she could have a heart attack, from the shock. I don't know. Well, both of my sisters were sitting there, and they're bawling, I'm crying. I just didn't know what to do. He gets it, honestly, bless his heart. And so finally,
DNA test of tears.
Finally, my older sister Kathy speaks up, and she says, "Well, Donna, Mother's known for years." I said, "What?" I just couldn't believe it.
Hold on, you have an older sister?
Yeah, and a younger sister.
younger?
And
Yeah,
my
of course
sister,
the older sister said something.
Yeah, she said, "Mother's known for years." I said, "What do you mean?" I told her I'd had some surgery years back, and I guess Kathy had gone to the doctor's appointment with me, and the doctor had asked me a question, had I had children, and it had nothing to do with the surgery I was having. I just said no, because I just didn't think I had children,
Yeah.
And evidently Kathy knew that I had, and she was worried that for some reason the doctor might need to know that. I don't know. She probably really just wanted to tell Mom. So she told Mom years ago. So my mother had known all this time. And so I just picked up the phone and called her. And she was just so excited because it had been such a heartbreak for her, too, that I never had children after Kyle. So she said, when do I get to meet him? When is he coming to the house? So Kyle did get to go in to meet her, and she was so
I was happy
thrilled.
to be my biological grandmother.
She was just a wonderful person.
Did it ever occur to you, to think past the parents to grandparents and think,
Yes and no. Because I'm interested in the whole lineage thing. Now, yes, it did. I always kind of, and even in that piece of paper that I talk about, it talked about both sets of grandparents, and even temperament and things like that. I had a little bit of an anger issues when I was younger, and when I think it was your father, had some anger issues, and it said that in the paper, and I was like, well, I wonder if I get that from him. Maybe. Yeah, so yes, I thought about more than just them. I didn't necessarily think about cousins and all that, and aunt, and but I did think about their siblings and their parents and how all that fit together. So,
well, what an amazing story, and y'all are absolutely a true success story. I mean, because
dreams do come true.
So. Not to get political, but we're probably about to go there.
Yeah.
Any of y'all, however you feel, but somebody in the same situation, abortion versus adoption. Hopefully this whole episode has been a testimony to the virtue of abortion. Excuse me. Yeah, the virtue of it. There is none. There is none. That's what it is to adoption.
Yeah.
So apparently I have dyslexia back in my history. I just found out about during this podcast.
It is. I'm I'm very happy that my biological mother is pro-life because I enjoy existing.
Well, I have to say, I have to say,
I would have thought you were a fan.
I am
of adoption.
I am pro-life, and that was my decision for myself. But I mean, I do believe that it's an individual's, choice to whether. So I have friends that have had abortions, and that was their circumstances, and that was fine. But for me personally, I wanted to have the child, even though I knew that I was going to give him up. Wanted to give him up for adoption.
I'm glad you did.
I am too.
Very glad
He
you did.
is too.
It worked out. It worked out, and I won the parental lottery.
You got 4 great parents.
I have 4 great parents, 2 Christmases, 2 birthdays. It's a win-win.
He really just loves
You have
it.
the benefit of them being divorced without having had to go through any divorces.
I kind of joke about this. My parents are 40 years older than me. My father is 86. My mother is 84. And they're not going to be around forever. And then I get the B team coming up right behind them. And I just really,
It's not bad being the B team.
No, it's not bad.
That's good.
But having parents that are 40 years older than me, when I was a kid, I assumed by the time I was 40 that both of my parents would be gone. I just did. So I can remember being 10 or 12 years old going, man, when I'm 40, there's no way my parents are going to live to be 80. No one lives to be 80, And now, of course they're still around and they're very great shape. You can't, they get around.
Better than us.
They get around just as well as they do. But it's comforting to know that even in 10, 20 years, I'm still going to have people around that care about me. So
That's awesome.
We're hoping.
One little interesting little fact that I got to tell you about how my name was Kyle before it was Kyle.
What?
Yeah. So I was, my parents named me Kyle.
So wait, your parents name you Kyle.
Correct.
They give you up for adoption, and your step-parents go, man, this
Step-parents.
kid looks like a... I mean, your adoptive parents.
Yeah.
Sorry, adoptive parents.
Yeah.
So can we edit that out? No, just let it in. But your adoptive parents take one look at you and go, this kid looks like a Kyle.
It does. Apparently, when you give up for a kid for adoption, you have to name them because again, 8 weeks I was in limbo, and I don't want to be
So
babies.
I have a
Yeah.
question about that. What was with this 6 or 8 weeks?
I'm confused too.
I don't really know.
No, y'all don't know?
We started. Don found the adoption home for us, and we went in there and told the story, and we wanted to give up.
While
And
she
then
was still pregnant.
yeah,
My-
while I was still
my
pregnant.
whole-
So I guess it just
yeah.
takes a while.
Here, I
don't
have a
know.
little bit of insight to this.
Okay.
And this is another crazy. My life is just so lucky. My parents were on the list to adopt a boy. They got a phone call. They just didn't have a good feeling about it, and they go, "I think we're gonna pass on this one, and we're gonna wait for the next one." And the next one was me.
Wow.
And so, my whole life was based
That's
on
like reaching in the hopper and pulling out the lottery
Right.
balls in order and just putting them in. Oh,
Yep.
that's-
So that might have been part of the problem why I was in limbo. They also had some very strict stipulations
Very
on
strict.
who could adopt me.
Yes.
Oh.
They must be. So here's the restriction.
Oh,
They
yeah,
had to
that
have
was
been somewhat well-to-do. They had to have been married for a long time. They also had to have another child. They had to be Christian. They had a lot. They set up some parameters. And luckily, my parents had all those prerequisites. So that might have, those parameters.
probably what it was. That had to
that's
be it.
probably what it was.
Very well could be.
Yeah,
we,
I
bet.
We,
There-
we
but-
had a
and
list.
I'm glad they
anybody
have those
list.
parameters. It worked out really well.
Is there anybody at the agency that you could ask?
I can, and that's something I need to go back. I have the person who gave me the therapy session. I should call her because it's always there's. Oh gosh,
Does she
is it,
know
is it
about all
Oh
of this?
yeah, oh yeah, she knows. Yeah,
Okay,
she knows. She
okay.
knows about all that. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, this whole, I don't know, who was it, Skinner or somebody, this whole trust versus mistrust, that first 8 weeks of life. I don't know, you took Psychology 101.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, okay.
You would be surprised.
Really?
Yeah.
There's a whole
That was the other.
mistrust
That was the other
thing.
course. I was supposed to take psychology and accounting. I was, and somehow they graduated me. I thought I had 6 hours left. I'm not kidding. I graduated in December, and I didn't know until March.
Really?
Yeah,
Jeez.
I thought I had to take that, and with psychology,
Yeah.
that was the other one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it really
No
really
one's
is
asked me that
interesting.
in 20 or 30 years.
Yeah, but I think I'm not a real touchy-feely person. I'm not a big hugger, and I think
was hard for me.
I think that 6 weeks of limbo. I mean, I think I'm fine. I'm happy, But I think it's on a psychological basis that
You learn how to be independent.
yeah, something like that. But yes, so when they gave me up for adoption, I think they were required to choose a name, so that way I wasn't baby 0783. They just chose Kyle.
It was
and
Donna.
in fact, on my original birth certificate, it said Kyle Kirkland Kinder. And so then I opened that file and it says Kyle right here. But then I asked the lady, I said, but that's my name is Kyle. And she goes, that's interesting. I immediately call my parents and I said, did you just go with the name I came with? And they go, no, you didn't come with a name. And I go, listen, are you 100% sure that I didn't come with a name? And they go, yes, you did not have a name. We named you Kyle.
I never knew that.
They
I didn't either.
named me Kyle. I was
can't
supposed to
believe
be
that.
Kyle. I was Kyle before I
That
was
gives me
Kyle.
goosebumps.
I am Kyle.
I didn't know that part of the story.
I didn't either.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just assumed they named you Kyle because that's what the paperwork
Nope,
said.
I did not come with a name. They
Oh,
chose
Kyle,
the
I can't
same
believe it. I've known
exact
you for
name,
3 years and I
except
didn't know
instead
that
of
story.
Kyle Kirkland Kinder, it's Kyle Russell Matus.
Oh my gosh. Meant to be.
Meant to be. It was all meant to be.
It was all meant to be, and it was all meant to
this
be at the
whole
time.
thing is, and I knew it. And I'm gonna give you a real sad one. When you're given up for adoption, you're so curious. So I can remember being like 10 years old and calling the psychic hotline, and telling this lady, "Am I ever gonna meet my biological parents?"
what
And
did
I'm
she say?
sure the scam artist on the other side was, saddened to say, but she goes, yes, I think you will, but it's going to be a long time when you're older. And sure enough,
She was right.
She was right.
No scam.
I would like to know how much that phone bill was. And my parents never said
What I'd
anything.
like to know is whether everybody's works out that way somehow.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting life that I have, and it should be a movie.
That's what everybody
I think
tells us.
Hallmark's already did.
Hallmark has already made it, apparently. There's
Well-
a movie out there that's a very similar story.
Really? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
Well, you're the real thing, though.
Yeah, that's true.
So-
That's true.
Well, thanks for coming in today. And
You're welcome.
What might have been the greatest podcast yet, except for me not being able to say, a couple of words right. I mean, you guys did great.
Did we? Good.
You're
It was
welcome.
a lot of fun.
So stay tuned. We got a lot more of things like this in store. Please like, share. If you are in any way affected by the story or have an adoption story, please put it in the comments. We would love to hear from you. Go catch Kyle at the Bob's Steak and Chop House, which is phenomenal in Grapevine, Texas. And what do you have Sundays off there? Or
Sundays were closed, but I work a lot. Chances are in there. Just request me when you make a reservation. I'd love to take
absolutely.
care of you.
And like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Lawyer Dana Podcast.
The Lawyer Dana Podcast.